Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. In the cold and icy mountains of the Austrian Alps, we see eagles soaring through the air, an extraordinary animal symbolizing courage and strength. Soon, a man named Danzer, a forest ranger, observes that majestic animal in the sky, and he says he would like to tell a story in which he was involved, even if only a little, and then he begins. He starts by talking about an eagle couple's egg that starts to hatch, and a new life emerges, the successor to the reign of its parents. However, he may not be destined for that position as he faces his older and stronger brother, knowing that he will also have to survive a being that dominates almost everything it wants, man. We see a hunter named Keller, who usually hunts eagles, along with his dog named Scout. He shoots at an eagle but misses. This is an alpha eagle, a male hunting to feed its chicks. He is successful in the hunt and takes the meal to its nest high on a mountain. The young eaglets, not knowing anything about the outside world or its dangers, feed without realizing that they will have to become like their father on their own to survive. One day, their father sees a possible threat, another eagle seeking territory. He chases after it, and in a mid-air battle, both of them fall onto the rocks by the river, and neither of them survives the impact. Now, without their father, uncertainty arises for the eagle family because he was the provider of food. As a result, the mother eagle must go in search of food and leaves the chicks alone. They already start fighting for territory and the incoming food. Danzer finds the dead father eagle and laments his loss. Keller also arrives at the scene, and apparently, he doesn't like Danzer very much. Danzer asks about Keller's son, Lucas, a boy who likes to talk to nature. Keller judges him as strange. Keller then follows the stream upstream. Lucas, the boy they were talking about, was observing them, but he is seen and runs to the house where he lives with his family, an old and rundown cabin, where we notice that something bad happened there. He rummages through the drawers and finds a photo of his deceased mother. Later, before going to sleep, he usually keeps feathers of birds he finds along the way. Keller, his father, arrives and brings a bird called black grouse, saying it was what his mother liked. However, it is evident that Lucas does not enjoy interacting with him, and there is not a good father-son relationship. When Keller leaves, Lucas kisses a bracelet on his arm, which will have greater importance later on. Returning to the eagle family without the father and now grown, the mother feeds them, but only one will be well cared for, as only one will become the next alpha. She goes out to hunt again, and when ravens come to also feed on what was in the nest, they knock down their food, and then, with no food left, the chicks start to fight among themselves. The situation becomes tense as they are very high up and cannot fly yet. When the worst happens, the youngest is pressured and loses balance, falling. He tries to hold on, but still too weak, he cannot wait for the mother's help and falls down the mountain. Fortunately, he is cushioned by tree branches. He is alive, but unable to climb back up. The mother, seeing him and hearing the other chick calling, decides to care for the older one to become the next alpha, leaving her youngest chick behind. Now alone in the forest, cold and unprotected from fierce animals, he hides and the day breaks. Soon, fox cubs hear him crying and approach him, but he doesn't back down and faces them, managing to drive them away. Then, a new path follows when Scout arrives where she was and barks, catching Lucas's attention as he was walking in the forest, as he usually does. When he gets there, he comes across the little eagle, which stares at him fixedly. Lucas approaches, and the eagle allows him to touch her. Seeing that she had fallen, he takes her in and carries her away very carefully. He takes her to the old cabin and decides to make an improvised nest and tries to feed her with bread, but she doesn't accept it. Lucas goes back to where Keller was, and while Keller is sleeping and doesn't see him, Lucas takes meat to feed the little eagle. He hurries back to find her and feeds her. Then he takes her for a walk in a cart around the cabin, and from a distance, Danzer sees them but doesn't approach as he sees Lucas happy and playing with the eagle. During the rest of the day, the boy relaxes and plays with his eagle friend. The next morning, he returns to the cabin with a new layer for the nest and goes outside to get worms to feed her. While doing so, he gets startled as someone approaches, but he soon realizes it's Danzer. Danzer arrives, already aware of everything, and tells Lucas that the food he was giving to the little eagle is bad for her, and he brings duck liver for her instead. He also questions Lucas about why he doesn't talk to his father, revealing that Lucas became distant after what happened to his mother. Danzer asks Lucas to try to talk to his father again. He tells Lucas that the eagle needs sunlight to develop her feathers well, and then opens a hole in the wall of the old cabin to let sunlight in for the little eagle. Back at home, Keller and Lucas build an enclosure, but Lucas doesn't seem very enthusiastic and leaves. However, his father calls him back and says there are more tasks to be done. Night falls, and Lucas chops firewood for his father to prepare dinner. Later, in his room, he looks at the bird feathers he has collected, but he doesn't go to dinner when his father calls him. Meanwhile, a fox arrives outside and attacks the chicken coop, and the dog barks, prompting Keller to go there. However, when he arrives, the fox has already caused a mess, leaving some chickens dead. He then looks for Lucas, who hadn't responded earlier, but he can't find him in his room or the kitchen. Lucas is hiding, waiting for his father to leave so he can take some food for the eagle. He enters the chicken coop and takes one of the dead chickens to feed her. Inside the cabin, the eagle awakens and sees a mouse. Her hunter's instinct makes her observe it, but without knowing how to fly, she falls when trying to catch it. Just as two foxes were approaching, Lucas arrives and scares them away. After feeding and playing with her, Lucas returns home, where he now sees a photo of his mother, realizing that she wore the same bracelet that he is wearing. He takes the Bible, specifically the part that tells the story of Cain and Abel, where one kills the other. He understands the parallel to the little eagle story and decides to give her a name, Abel, where a new ending would be written for her. In the forest, now wanting to take care of Abel, Lucas tries to catch a mouse but fails and sees high above him Abel's brother, whom he now calls Cain, training his wings and being well-fed to become a strong and fearless eagle of the sky. In the cabin, he tries to make Abel fly, but Danzer arrives and says that she still needs to change her feathers, and then her natural instinct will teach her. He also tells Lucas that in the summer, he can be closer to them and help Lucas raise Abel by providing food. Later, they go together through the mountains, and Lucas makes flight gestures in an attempt to encourage the eagle to spread her wings and fly, with an incredible view in the background. Danzer shows Lucas the place where he will sleep and some accessories to train Abel. However, as Danzer said he won't stop Lucas from being with Abel, Lucas spends a lot of time with the eagle. Lucas sleeps with the eagle. In the morning, he goes fishing with her, but after catching a fish, Abel doesn't accept it. His brother, whom Lucas now calls Cain, is almost ready and observes his mother hunting. She leaves the food away for him to pick up, and then he jumps, showing his mother that he's ready. Lucas, not knowing the teaching patterns, tries to teach Abel to jump in various ways, but none work. He then throws her from the top of the house, but she can't fly. Later, he carries her in his arms and encourages her to jump and fly. Abel spreads her wings and takes a small flight, leaving Lucas very happy. Arriving at night and gazing at the stars, they sleep. However, when Lucas wakes up at dawn, he doesn't find Abel and starts calling for him. Eventually, Abel appears, and Lucas sees that he was already flying quite well, showing that his limited training had been worthwhile. Lucas calls for Abel, and he lands by the lake, but when Lucas runs towards him, Abel seems not to recognize him and flies away. Lucas tries to follow him but fails, and on the way, he finds one of Abel's feathers, which he imagines will be the only thing he'll have to remember their time together. Now alone and at the beginning of his journey to fulfill his destiny, Abel searches for food without any hunting experience. He loses his first opportunity but doesn't give up on larger animals, attacking them, and a fight ensues. Abel tries to bring down a larger animal from a mountain, and they both end up falling, almost crushing Abel under the weight of the creature, which is 4 or 5 times his size. Luckily, Abel manages to escape without serious harm. Devastated, Lucas looks at the sky, hoping for Abel's return. Unsatisfied, he sets out to search for him tirelessly, determined to find his friend. Meanwhile, Keller is cleaning his shotgun and scans the sky to hunt passing birds, which poses a danger to Abel. He spots a prey but sees his brother take the prey he took too long to go after. Abel, however, doesn't dare to confront him and instead goes to the river for a bath. Lucas is worried, fearing the worst for Abel. Lucas climbs a hill to watch, hoping to see Abel return. While riding his bicycle, he is surprised as Abel returns from behind and reunites with his friend who searched for him every day, thinking he would never see him again. Lucas marks the spot of the reunion and places the feather that Abel dropped and which he found as a token of their time together. Knowing that Abel has learned to fly, Lucas now focuses on teaching him to become an excellent hunter.
Danzer starts teaching Lucas some techniques, but Lucas abruptly leaves.
It turns out his father had arrived near them, and he tells Lucas that the summer is ending, and he will be returning home with him. Danzer says he's setting up traps, and Lucas observes from behind a tree.
Keller notices that there's a friendship between Lucas and Danzer and tells Danzer not to forget that Lucas is his son.
Lucas resumes training Abel with Danzer's help, and they notice progress. Abel is becoming fast and agile in hunting. During one of their attempts, Lucas is running, and Scout, his dog, appears running behind him. However, Scout would also be prey for Abel. Danzer tries to call the dog back, but it doesn't work. Fortunately, the eagle catches the right prey, leaving Lucas and Scout unharmed. With everything ready and having shared many happy moments with Abel, Danzer tells Lucas that summer is over, and he has to return to his father. Keller, being a hunter, can't take Abel with him, so they have to let him go. Lucas doesn't accept it, but Danzer explains that Abel needs his natural instinct, and if he stays with them, he will lose that instinct and will never be able to return to the mountains, where he belongs. Saddened, Lucas accepts it, and they embark on a journey to the highest and farthest point from the mountains. Upon arriving, Danzer tells Lucas that here, Abel won't be bothered by his brother and can start a new life in a large and beautiful home. Lucas caresses Abel and places his mother's bracelet on him as a keepsake, bids farewell, and removes the blindfold from Abel's eyes. Abel, seeing the vastness that awaits him, leaps and flies away, now with his kingdom and his own greatness in that place. He soars to great heights, and his freedom cannot be taken away from him. Back home, Lucas looks at his feathers, cherishing Abel's feather with special affection, as it was once with him and helped him grow. In the morning, he sees his father setting up traps and doesn't want any other animal to get hurt, so he goes and risks himself to disarm all the traps. The winter that year was severe, and Abel tries to catch a fox crossing a small stream but fails and gets quite wet in the process. With his wings soaked, he struggles to fly and goes up the mountains to find shelter from the intense cold, which is a challenge for him. Lucas, walking around, sees a bird pass by, thinking it was Abel, and goes to the location of their reunion. He sees that the feather was still there and reminisces about the happy times he spent with Abel. In the hope of seeing him again, Lucas places pieces of meat on the rocks and then lies down for a while, eventually falling asleep. The sun shines brightly again, and Abel tries to dry his feathers to take flight once more. However, a massive avalanche forms and approaches, nearly burying Abel. Walking through the frozen forest, Danzer spots footprints and compares them to his own, realizing they belong to a child, and soon realizes they are Lucas's, who followed that path. In the distance, a wolf is sniffing around, and worried that it might be after Lucas, Danzer rushes to find him before the wolf does. Lucas wakes up and sees something passing in front of him. Startled, he gets up and realizes it's a wolf, and starts running. However, not knowing where his father placed the other traps, he is soon caught in one of them, leaving him vulnerable to the wolf. Lucas's cries are heard by Danzer, who rushes to his aid. As the wolf is about to attack Lucas, Danzer shoots into the air, scaring the wolf away. Seeing that Lucas is badly injured, Danzer carries him in his arms. Meanwhile, Abel arrives at the rocks where Lucas left the meat and eats, finally returning to his place of origin. However, as expected, he faces a challenge, his older and stronger brother. At the end of winter, Lucas reunites with Danzer, who is now reading a book to him, and the story bears a striking resemblance to that of the brothers Abel and Cain. However, the book lacks a final page, and Danzer can't tell Lucas the ending. Lucas, saddened, asks how the story ends, and Danzer tells him that in our stories, we have to create our own ending. Afterward, Abel faces challenges to prove his strength and earn respect, contrary to the story that the brother would always win. He fights his brother for food and, in the end, earns his respect, becoming his companion. Lucas returns to his family's old cabin, preparing to leave the place to try and find Abel, unaware that Abel is already outside watching him. As he's about to leave, he's surprised to see his father, Keller, who discovered where he sought refuge. Keller accidentally lights a match, intending to burn down the rest of the cabin, but he sees the photos that Lucas kept, reminding him of the day his mother died in the same cabin in a fire. Lucas runs into the forest amidst a storm, and Keller goes looking for him. Lucas reaches the foot of the mountain where Abel was born and looks up to the nest, seeing Abel there with his brother. Suddenly, a collapse surprises the eagles, nearly hitting Lucas. Worried and unsure if Abel survived, Lucas calls out for him when a lightning strike frightens him, causing him to fall and hit his head, rendering him unconscious. In the morning, Lucas's father arrives, apologizes, picks him up, and takes him away. The scene then shows what happened afterward, with one of the Eagle brothers meeting a tragic end, crushed by rocks. Years later, Lucas is seen conversing with his father again, walking while carrying firewood for their home. Lucas takes a glove he used to hold Abel and puts it on his hand, with his father telling him to stop and accept that Abel died in the storm. Lucas, believing that it was Cain who died in the collapse, insists that Abel is alive. His father, however, says that this dream is no longer real. In that moment, he notices something behind Lucas and asks him to extend his arm. Lucas turns around and sees a bird flying towards him. With a look of joy and happiness, he realizes it's Abel, who lands on his arm, still wearing the bracelet on his leg, confirming that it was Cain who died. Lucas takes off the bracelet and declares that Abel is now free forever. Both Lucas and his father are overjoyed. Lucas, for having reunited with Abel, and his father, for being together with his son once again. From afar, Danzer watches the two and sees Abel flying to his freedom. It is then shown that Abel flies back to his own nest, joining his partner, where a new story will unfold, caring for new life to come.